business forum members when Neil spoke last month or not, the month before, because it's very powerful. It is about your mindset. It is about what you can do when you set your mind to it. So I'll leave you to carry on.
Right, I'm just going to introduce you to an old friend of mine first of all, so I'm going to disappear behind here. If he wants to stand up, which he never did. Neil, if we do nothing, you'll be dead in 5 years. If you do nothing, where will your lives or your businesses be in 5 years' time? Let me tell you, when you're 32 years old, being told by a leading surgeon you've only got 5 years left to live, that isn't something I'm going to recommend to you today. I'll be honest, the words from the surgeon's lips hit me like a thunderbolt. But why was I surprised? After all, at this point in my life, I look like this. Anybody care to guess how much I weighed, who perhaps wasn't at this speech the other month? Any guesses?
36.
Higher. Higher. Bruce Forsyth time. Higher. Sorry? 40?
40.
A little bit higher. I was clocking in at the scales at 43 stone. 603 pounds? Or as a newspaper article rather strangely put it, the same weight as 673 tins of baked beans. My wife always used to tell me, darling, if you're going to die, will you please die on the ground floor? The undertaker will never be able to carry you downstairs. Her other standard threat was, well, there's actually no way that I can afford a coffin big enough for you. I'll save the cash, hire a JCB, and I can bury you in the garden. It was pretty obvious that I needed to change. Now, change is a word that gets bandied about in business one hell of a lot. But what does it actually mean? Well, change means doing things differently. Doing things better. Because if we keep on doing the same things, the same old ways, surprise, surprise, we'll just keep on getting the same old results. But change isn't something that comes easy. It isn't a natural process. Human beings don't like change. But unless we can learn to embrace change, then what will start off as a minor issue in either our personal or our professional lives will over time evolve and grow. And eventually you can find yourself faced with a monster. So I'll ask you again, if you do nothing, where will your life be in 5 years' time? Now we've only got 10 minutes here and I've just done 2, so I'm going to do something very brief. I'm just going to tell you a few stories and then talk to you about the supersize goal things that I said at the start. But I'd like to start off by taking you back to your primary school years, if I may. And imagine, if you will, a typical 9-year-old boy. The boy's intelligent, articulate, he's got lots of friends. He plays in the football team, goes to Cub Scouts and plays in his school band. All is well in his world. And then overnight he develops a stutter. A stammer that was so bad the boy could barely spit out 2 coherent words. Now children, as we know, can be cruel. And cruel they most certainly were. Every day the boy was bullied, he was mocked, he was tormented on the school playground. And every day his self-worth, self-esteem and self-confidence slowly drained away. So much so that one night he just broke down in his mother's arms and told her how useless, how worthless he felt about himself. Things came to a head with his stutter when one day his teacher asked him to go down the corridor to borrow a pair of scissors. Now it was 30 yards to that classroom, and the boy walked the walk as though he were heading to the gallows. He shuffled along, and as he shuffled he muttered under his breath, "Can Mrs. Ive borrow a pair of scissors? Can Mrs. Ive borrow a pair of scissors?" He wanted to practice the sentence, make sure he got it absolutely spot on for the minute he arrived in the classroom. Of course, the inevitable happened, and the words just wouldn't come out. The boy's face went bright red, and his whole body twisted and contorted with the sheer effort of trying to spit out that simple sentence. And in front of him, 32 school children erupted into raucous laughter. They mocked, they pointed, they jeered. And the boy just laughed along with them, pretending that he was part of the joke, that he found it as funny as everybody else. But inside, he was hurt. He was humiliated, and he was finally broken. Now, I remember that incident every single day of my life, because I was that 9-year-old boy. I can see the classroom in front of me as I speak. I can see the red jumpers of the students. I can see the late afternoon sunlight sweeping in from across the playing fields. And in the far corner, I can see the boy stood on his chair doing an impersonation of me. The ghosts of that classroom remain with me to this day, and they have shaped the majority of my life. Now, my mother got my stuttering situation by the scruff of the neck, and once a week for 2 hours I go down to the local health clinic and work with a speech therapist for a while. And month by month, year by year, the stuttering improved to the position you see before you today. Now, I'm never going to be the most eloquent speaker that will grace the group. I have to be really careful about the words, the phrasing I use. And 9 times out of every 10 presentations I give, at some point, will have at least one scissors moment. But, to all intents and purposes, that battle with my stutter had been won. But I was about to start a new battle. A battle that for 24 years I would lose hands down. A battle that practically claimed my life. You see, during those dark and lonely days when I first got my stutter, when my self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence were all being eroded away, I found a new friend. A friend that would become my rock, my comfort and my support. A friend that would be there for me no matter what. But a friend that I would only visit in secret, unbeknown to the rest of the world. My new friend was food. In fact, I found food so friendly that 24 years later, I ended up looking like this. So what is life like at 43 stone? Let me tell you, however bad you think it is, it's a whole lot worse. By the time I reached this size, I could barely stand up for longer than 30 seconds. Walking was almost an impossibility. And because we didn't go out, we became socially isolated. On the rare occasions we did go out, stairs were a constant way of life. People would physically stop walking in the street and point me out to their friends. They'd whisper and make comments. They obviously assumed that because I was fat, I had to be deaf as well. My body was covered in boils because showering was terrible. I couldn't go to the toilet with ease. Sex had long since ceased to be a possibility, and let's face it, who would want to anyway? Basically, by this stage in my life, I wasn't just living, I was merely existing. I had a supersized problem. And a supersized problem needs a supersized solution. And when I got to this point, my wife said, Neil, why don't we think about weight loss surgery? Weight loss surgery, I said? I can lose weight any time I like. Completely ignoring the fact that over the last 24 years, I've been to Slimming World, Weight Watchers, had diet pills, hired a personal chef, hired a personal trainer. Nothing worked. But no, I was still confident that I could lose weight any time I like. Like all good wives, she got her way. 6 months later, I was driving down to Chichester to see the surgeon. In the car, we played Guess the Weight of the Fat Man. I had no idea how much I weighed. But I tell you, when I stood on those scales in the hospital, I was truly shocked. None might be a closer word. And then the surgeon spoke the words that changed my life. Neil, if we do nothing, you'll be dead in 5 years. Suddenly, I realised what I knew all along. I had to change. I had to find the solution that worked for me. And in my particular case, that was a supersized solution. The surgeon put to me the idea of a gastric bypass operation. In short, my stomach would be stapled to the size of an egg. I would lose 1.8 metres of upper intestines, meaning that of the small amount of food that I could eat, not all the calories would be absorbed. The result would be rapid weight loss. But of course, it came with a 1 in 20 chance of death. So, I had a solution on the table. The question is, would I have the courage to go ahead and do it? Sometimes you have to feel the fear and do it anyway.